Let's just tell everyone we're together.
What?
Could be kind of fun.
There's no way we can convince anyone we actually like each other.
Trust me. We're at a wedding, a million miles away from home. Who knows what could happen?
Anyone but you.
On it.
Heart of Stone.
Game's about to start. Oh,
There's Tom.
oh, what a beautiful man.
I like Gronkowski.
We know, Trish. We've all read your Gronk erotica.
It's not erotica. It's fan fiction. Very sexy fan fiction.
80 for Brady. What do these three films have in common? Well, obviously they're not going to be in my best of the year list because we just did that last week. So that means we're looking at the worst movies of 2023. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Talking About the Movies. And as I said, we looked at my best movies of 2023 last week, so why not look at the bottom of the barrel, the worst movies of 2023, or as I like to consider it, the movies that is the show where I give the worst movies of the year one last punch in the gut because they took two plus hours of my life that I'm never getting back. And like I said last week, 2023 wasn't a bad year overall, but when there were some bad movies, there were some real bad movies, and movies that people, I shockingly found, actually kind of supported some of the movies I'm going to be talking about here. They actually got behind it. It's just like, oh, they're just fun movies. Why can't you just have fun? Well, it's just like, well, you know what? There were some movies that I liked in 2023 too that I thought were fun, and you guys not you people in particular, but I know people that I know got on me because I didn't say they were bad movies. Specifically stuff like, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which I'm sorry. It's not a bad movie. It's not the best Indiana Jones movie. It's a fun movie. I enjoyed it, but every time I talked about it and praised it, everyone got on me and saying like it wasn't good. Get over it. It's just like no, like I'm not gonna do that. Like that's not. It's like that's the fun thing about having a channel like this because I get to express my opinion on some of the worst of the year, and some of the best of the year. We've already covered the best though, but let's talk about the worst movies, and there was a lot of them. And kind of like with my best of the year list, it was hard for me to make a list that was going to stay consistent throughout the course of the year because December really kicked my butt with some really bad movies. Maybe not as much as the good movies I got in December, but it did make the list a lot more difficult to put together. So as per usual, before we get to it, let's talk about my honorable mentions for the worst movies of the year. And we've got a good assortment here, and you're going to notice a lot of these are direct-to-video movies and streaming movies. I mean, yeah, I could just let them go because they're just that, but no. This is a show about the worst movies of 2023, and they put these out there for people to see in 2023 in some capacity, either at home or in theaters. So you know what? All bets are off in this case. So let's just kind of run through these real quickly. These are my honorable mentions, and I'm going to start off with a Disney Plus original movie, Dashing Through the Snow, which stars Chris Ludacris Bridges and Little Ro Howie as Santa Claus. And it's a holiday comedy. It tells the story of a social worker and his daughter who helps Santa Claus when he's targeted by the minions of a crooked congressman. The movie was pretty much dead on arrival when they had to make the joke about, this is ludicrous, and Chris Ludacris Bridges is in there. The movie itself just isn't that good either. Like it's not a good story. The visuals are really, really bad. This reminded me of Noelle, which was another Disney Plus movie, and it just felt like you put this on a streaming service and you give it a high budget like this, like where's the visual effects money going into it? Like where's that money going into it? And it's just not worth it in the end. It's just not a funny movie. It's not an engaging film. It's not anything. It's a really bad Christmas movie. And like Disney Plus has had a couple of really bad Christmas movies, just like I mentioned, Noelle. But yeah, this is definitely one of those ones I'm never going to watch again anytime soon. Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Zack Snyder says, hey, Star Wars fans, I know you don't like the new Disney movies, but come over to us. We've got a great movie here, and you don't. I'm sorry. I would still rather take anything that Disney puts out from Star Wars more than anything that I saw from this piece of garbage. This is a piece of garbage, man. From a story perspective, it's so badly put together, and its cast is wasted here. The visuals overall, yeah, they're nice and all, but visuals don't make the movie, and this is just one of those ones that's just like, this is everything I hate about Zack Snyder nowadays. He feels like he can make any movie he wants to, and because he has those fans of the Batman v Super, is what he did to the Batman v Superman and all and the Snyderverse and all that. Anything he does is going to be pure gold, and no, it isn't. I used to like Zack Snyder back in the day, but this stick is starting to get old really, really fast, and this movie is no exception to it. But maybe he'll turn it around with part 2. I'm sincerely doubting it, but who knows? Maybe. Fool's Paradise. This is one that I was really let down by. Charlie Day writes, directs, and stars in this. He plays a down and out on his luck publicist who gets his lucky break when he discovers a mute man recently released from a mental health asylum who looks just like a method actor that refuses to leave his trailer. And there's the potential there with Charlie Day as a director. I think that's definitely in this movie, but he just needs better material to work with here. He's got too good of a cast for this to really fall apart here. Ken Jeong, Kate Beckinsale, Adrian Brody, Jason Sudeikis, Edie Falco, Jason Bateman, Common, John Malkovich, the late Ray Liotta. You expect so much better from him, and this one just didn't work for me. I was really hoping this was going to be something enjoyable, and I just didn't see it. It's a shame, too, because the potential is definitely there for Charlie Day as a filmmaker overall, and I can see where he's coming from, but this just wasn't it. Vacation Friends 2, Lil Rel Howery, in another movie that really is devoid of his true talents as a comedian, and John Cena's in this as well. Basically, the biggest problem with this is it's a sequel that doesn't work because the first movie didn't work either. I really did not like the first Vacation Friends movie, but it proved to be a success, and Hulu said, put the sequel out there, and it's more the same. Like, it's the typical comedy sequel. It's out there to try to create a franchise for this, and it's just not there. It's just not funny. It's not funny. It feels like everyone there is just doing this because, hey, you get a free trip to a tropical island, and it just doesn't work. It's not funny. It wastes the talents of two really good people, John Cena and Lil Rel Howery, and it's just not funny. I did not laugh once in this, nor did I laugh at the first Vacation Friends movie. So I don't know what the hell people see from it, but they made the sequel. Probably going to make a third one just because it's Hulu. Dear David, because when I think of a movie, I think of a movie from a company that is so tone deaf than BuzzFeed Studios. This is a BuzzFeed movie, the third film they've actually done. And the story of this is that you have somebody who retaliates against trolls, and because of this, it results in the haunting of a demon-possessed spirit of a boy. This is a real movie. And it wastes, Justin Long is in this movie as well. Like, he should know better than this. Like, this whole thing's based off of a Twitter thread by Adam Ellis, who was who's based this off of this, and they basically made a movie around this. And was it really worth it, dude? Was it really worth it to make a movie like this? Like, it's BuzzFeed Studios, for God's sake. BuzzFeed hasn't been relevant in years, and when they have been relevant, it's for the wrong reason. So why the hell should I trust them with a supernatural exorcism horror movie like this? Like, this is a horrible movie. Ghosted. This is one of those many, many movies that we'll see from Apple TV Plus that basically you look at it and say, this can't be a real movie, is it? Because it wastes too many good, talented people. You have Chris Evans and Anna Diarmas, a good writing team. Rhett Reese, Paul Winnick, Chris McKenna, Eric Summers. These are the guys that wrote the Zombieland movie. He's in the Spider-Man movies, the recent Spider-Man movies. And Dexter Fletcher, the director of Rocket Man. Like, what the hell happened between all these people and make a movie like this? This is an abysmal it's action comedy, and it tries to sell itself. It's trying to do like the polar opposite. Like, it's Anna de Armas who's the secret agent, and not Chris Evans, who's kind of the straight man in this. Like he doesn't know what's going on here, and it's just like, it'd be interesting if the movie was actually fun or the action sequences look pretty good, but it just isn't. It's a waste of true talented people all over the board here. Just an abysmal film. Family Switch. Hey, here's a brilliant idea. Let's take Freaky Friday, and instead of just having the mother and daughter switch bodies, let's have the whole family switch bodies. Yeah, now we're cooking with gusto. And hey, let's get Mech G to direct it too. The guy who did the Terminator and also the Charlie's Angels movies. Why the hell did anybody think this was a good idea? This movie is the perfect example of a movie that you look at and say, this cannot be real. This has to be like one of those parody movies from like Funny People, like the one that Adam Sandler did, is charactered in that movie. But nope, this is a real movie, and again, it wastes Jennifer Garner and Ed Helms and Brady Noon, who's a pretty good kid actor. It's just not funny. There's nothing about this movie that's engaging at all. It's the typical definition of what studio executives think people who go to family comedies want to see, and we don't want to see these type of movies. And unfortunately, this is what happens. Like this is the end result. And here's another movie with family in the title that's also bad. The Family Plan. Mark Wahlberg starring as this former assassin who's living incognito as a suburban dad and takes his unsuspecting family on the run when his past catches up to him. You ever seen the movie Undercover Blues? You ever see other movies like this? That's pretty much what this movie is. And Mark Wahlberg, Michelle Monaghan, Kieran Hines, Maggie Q is in this movie. Like, I'd be fine with it if it was funny or anything interesting, but the movie doesn't know what kind of a tone it wants to take with it. Does it want to be a family comedy? Does it want to be a more straightforward action comedy? Like, it's not funny stuff, and the action sequences in here aren't that great either. It's just not enjoyable. It's a really dull movie, and it goes on way too long. This is a 2-hour movie, and nothing happens that makes you laugh or makes you invested in what's going on. It's an onslaught of nothingness. Genie. Richard Curtis, what happened to you? I mean, even though this is based off of a British TV film that he did, and to be honest, it's not the worst I've ever seen of these movies. Melissa McCarthy is at least trying to save it. Like, she isn't doing the typical Melissa McCarthy thing at first. But then as the movie goes on, and you just have a lot of predictable comedic jokes that just kind of fall flat. Again, the family film type of jokes that you would expect to see in a movie like this. It's just a real missed opportunity. There is a lot of potential for what I see in here. There are some good moments in here, but when it goes for the really bad, obnoxious moments where people are just doing things to just get your attention, it really falls apart. And I expect a lot better from Richard Curtis, especially from a guy who's written great stuff like Love Actually and Notting Hill and so many other great movies. This just feels like a major step down for him, and it's more of a disappointment than it is a straight up bad movie. Like, maybe I could watch this over the other streaming movies that we've talked about so far, but it's a bad movie. It's just not an enjoyable film. Napoleon. You ever heard of the story of the Emperor's New Clothes, where the Emperor walks out and everyone praises him for his clothing, and then he decides to walk out of there naked, and then nobody really realizes it until somebody tells him? That's what Ridley Scott is like right now. His movies feel like, in fact, I don't even know if I set that up right, but you get the idea here. The movie feels like yet another movie where Ridley Scott feels like he can do whatever he wants, and people will praise him for it, and I have to be the guy to tell him, dude, you're sitting there buck naked. Your stuff isn't working anymore. And Ridley Scott's work really isn't working anymore. I've seen people praise his movies the last couple of years, specifically stuff like The Last Duel and All the Money in the World and, Exodus, Gods and Kings and The Counselor. And, like, the guy doesn't have that spark anymore. Yes, it's cool to see a new Ridley Scott movie every once in a while, but you still have to go back to what made you the director that you are. Like, he's not making those same movies like he did with Alien and Blade Runner and Thelma and Louise and, Matchstick Men, Black Hawk Down, these great movies that we still look back to, even if a lot of these movies are forgettable. The best movie he's made in the last 10 years is The Martian, and even then, The House of Gucci's a close second, but even then, that's not a great film, but I still prefer that one over some of his more recent works. And guess what? He's digging himself back into the hole with Gladiator 2, because clearly we need a Gladiator sequel. But, what's really wrong with this movie here? It's the tone. The tone of this movie is so all over the place that it really takes away from the stuff that I actually did like about the film. I thought Joaquin Phoenix was good as Napoleon Bonaparte, and sometimes the action sequences can look pretty good, but there are times in this movie where you look at this and going like, what are you doing, Ridley? Like, scenes will be just shot weird, cinematography will look really bizarre, the writing will just be all over the place, and it's just like, it just ruins the ebb and flow of the movie. Like, I don't know what tone you're supposed to be taking this. Do you want to do a serious film, or do you want to be something a little more comedic? Like, decide what you're going to do beforehand instead of doing it while you're on the set. That's why I didn't like this movie. I really did not like this. Not because of Joaquin Phoenix, not because of Vanessa Kirby, who I thought did a pretty good job, or the action sequences. It was everything else. Everything else about this movie really was just, it's a jumbled mess on so many levels. Gran Turismo. I'm not going to lie, it's an interesting idea. It's not a straightforward video game adaptation. They do take it off of a true story, where they actually did try to get real people to come in and and drive these racers. I mean, that could have been an interesting story, but it falls into predictable territory, and it really stumbles because of that. And for Neil Blomkamp, a director that started off his career so promisingly with District 9 and Elysium, it's better than Chappie, but not by that much. I mean, it's a movie that, like, this is one of those movies that you look at and you think to yourself, you know, the people who run the television department of PlayStation Productions really needs to have a conversation with the people at Sony's movie department, at the PlayStation Productions movie department, because the TV department is kicking the crap out of them right now. I mean, this year alone, we had The Last of Us and Twisted Metal, and what have they done so far in terms of movie division? Uncharted, which was in the same spot last year, and Gran Turismo. Not really terrible, horrible movies in general, but just real massive disappointments for what they could truly be. And this is definitely a prime example of that. Meg 2 The Trench, a movie that I was really looking forward to because the trailers sold me right away, but this one took way too damn long to get really going. I mean, it's a film that really, the trailers did a great job of selling you on the movie, but you don't get to the fun stuff until more than halfway through the film, and it's just like, come on, get to the shark already. Like, it's like, yeah, Jason Statham is supposed to be awesome in this, like, but to its credit, when we do get to those moments, it's fun to watch, but at the same time, it's too little too late. Like, by the time you get to the good stuff, you're already ready to get out the door. I know I certainly was when I saw this film, and even when I went back to watch it again, I still couldn't get into it. It's a shame too, but you know, I'm not against the idea of them doing another one of these movies with this director. If you give him but just get to the good stuff ahead of time, and don't make us sit there for over an hour before we get to the actual good stuff. And finally on this list we have House Party, one of two remakes directed by the same director. We'll get to the other one later on, but LeBron James produced this one, and this just proves that movies like this probably should have just stayed in the 90s, because trying to redo this now in 2023, you get a movie that's not funny or really outdated pretty quickly, and it doesn't have that spark of the original House Party movies. Like, the original House Party movies stayed in the 90s, and that made those movies so unique and so special for them, but this is just like, it's just not what, it just feels like a movie that's just a cash grab. It's a movie that was supposed to be released to streaming, that they blew it up on the big screen because, you know, David Zaslav realized, I gotta make money somehow. I gotta make back this debt that I keep digging myself into somehow. So put this on the big screen, and end result is this movie that's really, it's a really bad movie, but it's not as bad as the other remake that this director did, but we will get to that fairly soon, because now we're going to jump into my top 10 worst movies of 2023. Here is the actual list. So, starting off at number 10, we have a movie that just came out not too long ago, and that is Anyone But You. Now, as of the time of recording this is one of the biggest sleeper hits at the box office right now, and I don't know why. I don't know why people got invested into this, but you have Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney. They have a captivating first encounter, and they discover that their initial fiery passions have been inexplicably dwindled to frosty misunderstanding. However, fate intervenes. Thrown together at a dreamy Australian wedding, they offer a charade of coupledom, but sparks reignite amid the sun-kissed scenery, forcing them to confront their true feelings and embrace a second chance of love. This is a thing, but this trailer was terrible right from the get-go. The plot of the movie basically is something that we've seen done over and over and over again in a romantic hey, let's pretend like we're dating, and is like what's gonna is what do you think will happen at this point? Well, gee, if I've seen enough romantic comedies to know that you two are gonna end up getting together by the end. You're gonna have that third act breakup. You're gonna go your separate ways. There's a big misunderstanding, and then you're gonna get back together, and it's all gonna be happily ever after. And that's literally what happens in this friggin' movie. This is based off of Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare, and this director, Will Gluck, has actually done another modernized version of a classic story from back then, Easy A, which was based off The Scarlet Letter. And of course, Clueless was a big success back in the 90s with Amy Heckerling. But this movie just isn't funny. There's not one bit of moment in this movie that I laughed at. And I like these two actors. I like Sydney Sweeney. I like her on Euphoria. I like Glenn Powell. I've seen him in Top Gun Maverick. But they have no chemistry together whatsoever. And the writing for this movie just goes where you think it's going to go. It's the typical rom-com. You don't buy into any bit of their relationship at all. Even the fact that they're trying to pretend that they don't like each other when they really hate each other. You can't even tell that. Like, these two have no connection whatsoever to what makes this anything enjoyable. And there's nothing there. It's not funny. It's boring. There's nothing going on in this movie that really is worth it. And it baffles me that people are still going to see this movie when there are far better movies out this holiday season that you can go and see that people are just passing over. Like, you can go see The Color Purple. You can go see Godzilla -1. You can see The Boy in the Heron. You can go see Wonka. Even though I hated Wonka, I'd still have more fun. Tell people, hey, go see Wonka. I didn't like it, but you're going to enjoy this more than you're going to love this piece of shit. Like, it's a bad movie. It's a really bad movie, and I just don't get why people are so sticking around to it. Maybe it's because they love Sydney Sweeney, which, okay, I guess, but you know what? I'd rather see her in some good movies. I don't want to see her in this. I don't want to see her in Madam's Web. I'm not going to go see Madam's Web because it's just because she's in it. Like, put her in some good movies. Put her in some movies that actually have effort put into them. Not this piece of garbage. And this is a movie that the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I hated it. And I just had no choice but to put this in at the bottom of my top 10 list. This is the 10th worst movie of 2023. Anyone but you. Coming in at number 9, we have The Drop. And no, I'm not talking about the criminally underrated 2014 film with James Gandolfini and Tom Hardy. Go check that movie out. No. We're talking about this movie. I mean, this black comedy, which is basically it's a one joke premise. It's a one gimmick premise. The film follows a young married couple who run an artisanal bakery in Los Angeles and makes plans to start a family. Their plans are thrown into upheaval when at a tropical resort for a destination wedding, the woman Lex accidentally drops their friend's baby. That is literally the plot of this entire movie. Like, this is an abysmally bad movie. This is a film that has one gimmick. One single gimmick. And that's it. You spend an hour and a half with these people that you absolutely hate. You have no sympathy for them whatsoever. And their problems are not worth your time at all. Like, this is the equivalent of that show, The Slap, that used to be on NBC, where the neighbor slaps the kid of one of of the other neighbor, and it's an entire show about this whole thing. Like it's not fascinating stuff, and what they tried to do in there was not fascinating whatsoever. And this has too good of a cast to really be this bad. Like Jermaine Fowler, Jillian Bell, Utkasha Ambudkar. I think I really butchered that name, but let me see for a second. Utkarsh Ambudkar, Robin Thede, Aparna Nachayara from the Great North. You also have along with Mark and Jay Duplass, the Duplass brothers, at the producing position. This is the best you can do? Like, really? This is cringe comedy at its absolute worst. It's an abysmally unfunny mess of a movie that wouldn't even make it as a TV show, let alone the movie. It's a misfire on so many levels. You get nothing out of it. It's just a waste of your time altogether. Coming in at number 8, we have the second 90s remake from Calamatic that came out in 2023, and that is White Men Can't Jump. And House Party, as much as I didn't like House Party, I at least give it credit that it was at least trying to stay relevant to the original film. even though that really was something that probably should have stayed in the 90s. This should have definitely stayed in the 90s, because the original White Man Can't Jump with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes is a comedy classic. It's one you can still watch to this very day and still laugh at. There's nothing about this movie that's funny. It's a modernized version of the film where you have Jack Harlow, the singer, playing the main white guy in this, and Sinqua Wallace playing Kamal. Jeremy is an injury-prone former star. Kamal is a has-been prodigy. They team up to take one final shot at living out their dreams. And this is written by Kenyon Barris, who gave us Blackish. And man, has he written a lot of bad movies since Blackish ended. I mean, this is another one of those movies that's just like, where'd your talent go, man? Like, where did a lot of these people's talents go in this movie? You have Lance Reddick. This is one of his last movies he did before he passed away. You have Tiana Taylor, Laura Harrier from Spider-Man Homecoming, Vince Staples. You get Blake Griffin, Taylor Rooks, Stan Verrett from ESPN. And this should not be this hard to remake, but this movie was not funny. It's trying way too hard to be too relevant, but still have kind of a little bit of the edge from the 90s. But, you know, nothing tops the WTFness of this movie than the random scene of somebody with a flamethrower. They literally have a guy come up to these guys with a flamethrower. Like, what am I even watching here? Like, when at any point in the original White Man Can't Jump did anybody have somebody on the level of a flamethrower where in this movie? I mean, there's really pushing it, and then there's really pushing it, and this is really pushing a lot of people's nerves, myself included. When that flamethrower came up on the screen, I was just like, okay, I'm done. I shut it off. I'm just like, I'm not coming back to this. And then I eventually finished it, and I regret doing that because nothing came from this movie after that point. I mean, this is a really bad movie, man. Like, this was the one where I felt like the director wasn't even trying, because he just knew he had a name brand. He knew that people were going to go watch it at some point, and this was the end result of it. And it just really struggles on so many levels. There's nothing about this movie that needs for it to exist. None whatsoever. And like I said, just go and watch the original one. It still holds up to this very day. It does a lot more than anything that this piece of garbage does. My 8th worst film of 2023, White Man Can't Jump. Coming in at number 7, we have Heart of Stone. Another one of those examples of people that try to keep telling you streaming is the way of the future. Forget about physical media, forget about theaters. Streaming is the way of the future, and we're going to show it with movies like this. And this is what you get out of it. Heart of Stone. You have Gal Gadot in this, who is an international intelligence operative who must embark on a dangerous mission to protect a mysterious artificial intelligence system known as the Heart. She is tasked by the peacekeeping operation known as Charter to keep the objects safe from falling into enemy hands. And this thing had a $150 million budget. It's one of the most expensive movies Netflix ever made. So you would think with that, they would have a good script, a good director, good action sequences, to make this movie warranted of even existing. Nope. Nope. None of that whatsoever. Like what happened to Gal Gadot, man? Like, Wonder Woman really jump-started her career, and then after that, it's just like, almost every movie she's taken after Wonder Woman has just been so poorly put together, and this is no exception. Like, this is some of the worst staging for anything I've ever seen in any movie. This is a film that is so ridiculous. There's literally a scene in the movie where she literally jumps off of a mountain resort. Jumps off of there. Nobody gives a crap whatsoever as she opens up her parachute. It's just like, this must be a normal thing for them. Like, there are scenes in this movie that are so ridiculously shot. It goes back to levels of Superman 4, The Quest for Peace levels of bad. Like, scenes like that scene in Superman 4 when Superman's going through the subway and everyone's supposed to be surprised that Superman is there, and then you see the people, the shots of the people walking by. They're not looking at Superman, and like, I'm pretty sure the directors told them, just act happy, just smile if you have to just act surprised, do whatever you need to do. And like, a lot of that is in this movie. The plot of this movie makes no sense whatsoever. It's basically a watered down version of Dead Reckoning Part 1, which even that was really struggling to get going in the story department. And this is a horrible movie, and it's a waste of true talent. Gal Gadot, I think, really does have a lot of acting potential. We saw it in Wonder Woman. We saw it in Red Notice. But everything she's done since then has not been good, and this is one of those prime examples. And it would help if she had a good action director and not a British director in Tom Harper, who previously before this made stuff like Peaky Blinders and War and Peace. Like, how about getting actual action writers, like, you know, instead of getting the co-writer of Hidden Figures as well as the co-writer of okay, they did get Greg Rucka did actually write some action stuff, and he did write for DC Comics, so maybe they were in the right direction there, but like, still didn't help the script overall. It was just not an enjoyable film to watch. It was boring. There were good action films that came out in 2023 on streaming. Go watch Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. That had some really cool action sequences in that movie. Like, there was some good stuff that came out. It's even Tetris, which isn't really an action movie, still had a better visual eye to it than anything out of this piece of garbage. This is an abysmally bad movie. Like, avoid this one like the plague. Heart of Stone, just proof that streaming really is not the way of the future that they want you to believe. Coming in at number 6, we have Expendables 4, which is basically the second worst use of the 4 within the title since Fan 4 Stick. Yeah, there was no reason to make this goddamn movie. This is a film that, this thing was Sylvester Stallone's baby from the get-go with the first Expendables movie back in 2010. And he's been with them ever since the beginning. And first Expendables was a fun movie, seeing all these action stars together. The second one, I thought, was better than the first one. Third one, not a good movie, but certainly will enjoy that one over this movie here. Like, they really thought that this was so important. Stallone thought this was so important that he's going to do the honor of not even bothering to show up in this movie at all. He's barely in the movie. This is his puppy from the very beginning. And the fact that he was so demanding of another one of these, and you're not going to show up in this one? Are you serious? Like, you spent all of this time getting all these people together and begging the studio to give you another movie out of the Expendables, and you're barely in the movie for less than 20 minutes. He's barely in the movie for less than 20 minutes of the runtime. Well, like, what's the point of that? Like, okay, maybe Stallone's not there anymore, but hey, we still got some good action here. Not from this director, Scott Waugh, this director who actually made a pretty underrated film back in the day, Need for Speed. I thought that was a ton of fun, but since then, he hasn't really done a whole lot, which I thought Need for Speed was one of those criminally underrated video game movies. But this, it's like the action sequences in here are so badly put together. The visuals are terrible. You know what here's the thing. The best thing that came out of this movie was Jason Statham and Megan Fox. I should not be saying that about an Expendables movie, but it has Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, Randy Couture. But no joke, Statham and Fox really were the two best things about this movie. I believe their chemistry together. I believe that they could lead this series if a better script was in place here. Like, I thought they were the best things about the movie in general, but there's just no movie around them. There's nothing about this movie that keeps this in terms of the story or the execution that makes me say those two being the best thing about it are the reasons why you should see this movie. You shouldn't see this movie. This thing should have ended with the Expendables 2. Like, let it go. Like, in the time since the last Expendables movie, we've had the John Wick movies. The John Wick movies have gotten better and better with every film. These get worse and worse after the second movie, and it's just like, just let it go, man. Sylvester Stallone, you are too good to keep doing this to yourself. You want that Oscar so badly? Go back and make real movies again. Go back and make movies that made you the star that you were back in the day. You can still make action movies, but if you really want that Oscar so badly, like, go back and make some great stuff again. Go make another Rocky movie. It's not too late for you to do that. But I mean, what do I know? I mean, but what I do know is that the Expendables series should have died with Expendables 2, because Expendables 4, they're not even trying anymore. That's my 6th worst film of 2023. We're heading into the top 5, the 5 worst movies of 2023. And let's start with number 5, and that is Fast X. Man, this series has been on a roller coaster like there's no tomorrow. Fast and Furious, the first one, was a fun movie. Then it dipped down with Too Fast and Furious, but kind of went back up because it's a so bad it's good type of movie. Then Tokyo Drift was the bottom of the barrel. Then they brought everybody back with Fast and Furious and Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7. Furious 7 was their peak. They've been going downhill since then. They had a little bit of a rise up with Hobbs and Shaw and Fast 9, but man, Fast X was just like, it's over, man. Just let this series die already. Like, these movies drained me to no. This movie drained me to no end. Like, this is a bad movie. Like, this is a horrible, horrible movie. And this is one of those movies that everybody went and saw it and loved it. And I just could not see what they were seeing from this movie. I mean, this is such a mess of a film on so many levels. From a story level is from the fact that let's just keep bringing everybody back and keep adding characters because, Brie Larson, Jason Momoa, yeah, they've got their own franchises, but you know what? They come in here, they can make it on their own. It's just like they can make it in their own way, and like they're so wasted in this. Like, I'm so sick and tired of somebody from Dom's past coming back. Like it's gonna get to the point where Dom's great grandparents are gonna come back from the dead and become the villains of this movie. You just watch, because like these movies do not give a shit anymore. This is the thing this is one of those movies that cost too much money, $340 million, and they were expecting to make this money back because people were gonna buy into it. And even by this point, the action sequences, they're just not fun anymore. The story is not that fun anymore. When I have to sit here for over 2.5 hours watching these people that I don't give two shits about anymore, the spark is gone with these people. And the only reason Vin Diesel keeps doing this to himself is because he's got nothing left. Guardians of the Galaxy is over. Every time he tries to start a new series or franchise outside of the Fast and Furious series, it ends up cratering badly. This is a prime example of that. This just feels like it feels like he's stuck in this series and he has nowhere else to turn to, despite the fact that the guy is incredibly talented and has shown it in so many other properties beforehand. It's just like, and guess what, folks? That may not last too long, because not but a month ago, somebody is suing him for sexual battery and retaliation. So this is the end of the family at this point. This is looking like the end of the family at this point. Like, I would not be, if this ends up being true, I would not be surprised if Fast and Furious 11 is the last film in the series, which, you know what? More power to him, because it's time to move on. This series isn't fun anymore. Like, it's not fun. Like, the action sequences aren't that great to look at anymore. The characters are getting more obnoxious and more annoying and pointless. Like, if I have to see Charlize Theron as Cypher again, like, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind, because I am so sick and tired of her. I hated her from the very beginning. She's brought nothing to the series. She is one note. She wastes the talents of a truly great actress in Charlize Theron. I'm just over it, man. Like, I'm really over this series anymore. I'm not looking forward to the next movie. I'm hoping it's the end of the road for this. Like, I'm just done with the Fast and Furious movies, man. And Fast X was really my drop-off point, for real. Like, I can't take it anymore. Fast X, my 5th least favorite film of 2023. Speaking of Universal bringing out franchises and completely destroying them pretty quickly, number 4 on my list is The Exorcist Believer. Now, Warner Brothers and Universal made a deal back in 2021, I should say, to acquire the distribution rights to these movies for $400 million, and the intention to start a new trilogy of Exorcist films, because they did it with the Halloween films, and it's the same directors, the same writing team. $400 million, and this was the end result of that first film. It starts off strong. It has a good opening. I thought the first 30 minutes in general were very good. I thought they were moving this in the right direction, but almost as soon as the 30-minute mark happens, the film goes downhill pretty quickly. It's a movie that suffers a lot of the same problems that the Halloween trilogy did at the end of its run, but this is the first film, and they're already suffering through a lot of the biggest problems that the last Halloween movie had in movie 1. We're supposed to get 2 more movies from this, and there's nothing about this movie that makes me want to go back to this after this first film. This just proves that the Exorcist movies should have just stayed as the first one. Exorcist 3 was great. Don't get me wrong, that was a great sequel. But Exorcist 2, Exorcist the Beginning, the prequel that Paul Schrader did, The Dominion. The only other one that's been great was the TV series that came out on Fox not too long ago, and that got canceled after 2 seasons, unfortunately, because, you know, it's not American Idol, it's not the X Factor, because we're Fox. Like, but this movie just really, it just showed there was no reason to do this again. Like, try to do for Halloween what you did with Halloween with this, because it literally is taking all the notes from the Halloween movies. We've got Ellen Burstyn back because she's got to be the Jamie Lee Curtis of this series. Linda Blair's also back at the end of this movie, and even when she shows up, it's just like, why? Like, why do you want to keep coming back to this when it's clear that you're not going to do anything different than you haven't done in the other movies? Like, really, what more can they do with this that hasn't been done already and other people have done already? The Exorcist TV series did more with this concept than anything from a majority of the Exorcist sequels. And here's something interesting that happened just this week. David Gordon Green dropped out of the movie. So the film got shelved. The sequel was supposed to come out in April of 2025. They shelved it for now, and so now they're starting from scratch again. They spent $400 million on this with the intentions of making this a trilogy on the level of the Halloween films, and they've already given up by movie 1. That really says a lot about why this movie exists, why Universal put the money into this, and the fact that it didn't work the first time, it bit them in the ass big time. And like I said, quite frankly, I don't know how you're going to get people to come into this movie once again. And really, I just don't see why you need to do another one. This first one just proved that you did not need to do this. This is just a waste of time. You took a beloved property and you put it out there. You know why I think they did it? I just realized this now. They put this out there because it's the 50th anniversary of the original Exorcist. You know what you could be doing instead of going to a theater to watch this piece of garbage? Go and watch the original Exorcist. It still holds up after all these years. It's still a classic movie. It's much better than anything that this piece of garbage gives us. The Exorcist Believer, my 4th worst film of 2023. Coming in at number 3, we have another Universal movie on this list. Universal apparently had a pretty bad year in my opinion, but Strays. That movie was trying to be the sausage party for dogs. The storyline of this movie, you have an abandoned dog voiced by Will Ferrell, who teams up with several strays played by Jamie Foxx, Ela Fisher, and Randall Park to get revenge on this abusive owner. The movie literally is about this dog played by Will Ferrell. What's his end goal in this whole thing? I need to bite this guy's wiener off. Bite his dick off. That is literally the entire movie. Now, if it was funny, if they had good writing and good directions to make it work, I'd be fine with it. This is directed by Josh Greenbaum, who made a very good film that came out a couple years ago, Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. The writer of this is Dan Perrault. Dan Perrault is a guy that's best known for writing the show American Vandal, which was a mockumentary TV series. He also wrote Players, which was on Paramount Plus. And it's produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. They gave us Cocaine Bear earlier in the year. The producer of Louis Leterrier is a producer that you are very familiar with. He's done stuff with Now You See Me, and he directed Fast X. It has a cast that includes some of the funniest people that we have right now. And this is all you can give us? Really? Like, the movie is only an hour and a half long, but it drags on, and the jokes about this movie the jokes in this movie are not funny. Like, nothing about this movie is funny. The visuals are bad, the setups are bad, the motivations are bad. It's a waste of truly good, talented people, and a good idea. There's a good idea to have in this movie. Maybe if this was a CG animated comedy, maybe you can make this work. If it was something on the lines of Sausage Party, because Sausage Party was funny, and it works because it's a CG parody of movies, of computer animated movies that has become the norm. But this, I think, making this a live action movie really hurt the film big time. They spent way too much money on this movie. It was a huge flop at the box office, and it didn't help that the film was not funny whatsoever. There was not one joke in this movie that was hilarious or well done. There was nothing about this movie that worked. Like, This reminded me of the Happy Time Murders, but even in the Happy Time Murders, I found stuff to laugh about. Like, this is worse than the Happy Time Murders. And the Happy Time Murders tried to do the same thing that this movie did, except that one, it was with Jim Henson puppets. And like I said, it didn't work all the way through, but at least was trying. This clearly was not. This was a film that you could tell probably was made during the pandemic. They couldn't get everybody together, and it shows on screen. Like, the backgrounds look pretty bad at times. The comedy isn't funny. It doesn't even end on a good joke at the end of it. Like the dog rips the penis off. Story over. Like, that's it. That's the reason. Is you maybe sit here for an hour and a half for that? Like, it's a bad movie. It's a really bad film. Like, it didn't work. It just wasn't funny. It wasn't creative. It's a mess of a film. Avoid this one like the plague. Strays, my third least favorite film of 2023. We're almost at the big one, so let's get to number 2 on my list of my worst movies of 2023. The second worst film of the year came out very early in the year, and that is 80 for Brady. A movie that's basically book club, except, hey, we got Tom Brady, so we have to bring the husbands into this too. And I pity those husbands and those boyfriends that got dragged to this movie because, my God, this was a horrible movie. It's basically based on a true story about 4 lifelong friends played by Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Sally Fielder travel to watch Tom Brady and his New England Patriots play in Super Bowl 41 in 2017. Because why not? Tom Brady's the producer of this movie, so of course he's going to have creative control over this. And this is a really bad comedy. This is a really bad movie. Like, this whole movie is not even good for sitcom levels. Like, sitcoms are much funnier than anything in this movie here. The whole movie's existence the reason for this movie exists. I said it back in my original review. I'll say it again here. This is the type of movie that you drag your that ladies drag their gal pals out. Hey, let's go to a movie. I'll bring the wine. I'll bring the Chardonnay. We'll wear our fancy dresses. We'll go out and have a good time, and we'll go see a movie. And they spend the whole movie doing nothing but talking about what they're wearing, talking about their lives and all that. And then when they get home from the movie, the husbands are just like, "So how was the movie?" It's just like, there was a movie. It's that type of movie. It's like it's a Mamma Mia, Sex and the City type of thing, where these people that go to this movie and say they like it do not like this movie. They don't like this movie at all. They go into this movie, talk with their friends, gabble at the course of the movie, maybe quickly look at the screen because, oh, there's a hot older guy on the screen. Oh look, it's Harry Hamlin. You know, oh look, it's Tom Brady. It's Rob Gronkowski, and they don't really see the movie itself because the movie itself is horribly put together. The jokes in this movie are so bad. It's not good jokes. It's jokes that are basically just like what makes my mother laugh? Put that in the movie. Like, what are the risque jokes that we could put into this film? And it's just the whole thing centering around this whole movie's existence because of Tom Brady. Like, this is not an engaging story to go off of. Like, it's supposed to be based on a real-life group of Patriots fans known as the Over 80 for Brady gang, and even then, that's not a fascinating story. You want a real fascinating story? You want to do a movie about the NFL that's about a real fascinating story? Do a movie about the guys that go to every single Super Bowl every year. Like, that would make a far more interesting movie than anything in this garbage, but nope, can't do that because Tom Brady is the producer of this movie and he has to be the center of attention because this was his big moment, even though the Falcons pretty much gave him the win in that game. Like, they didn't really, like, Patriots didn't really need to do anything. They just had to sit back and just play like they usually do. It's like watching the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday against the Miami Dolphins. Like, Chiefs didn't really need to do anything for that game because they knew the Dolphins were going to lose that game because they can't play in cold weather, and Tua can't throw the ball downfield at one time except for Tyreek Hill, but that's another story altogether. But it's just a waste of talented people. I like Lily Tomlin. I like Jane Fonda. I like I like Sally Field. I think Tom Brady can be good if he makes fun of himself. He's made fun of himself in the past. I mean, on The Simpsons, on Family Guy, and Ted 2. But this is a movie that really fails because it's not supposed to make fun of Tom Brady. It's not supposed to make fun of anybody on the New England Patriots, because this is supposed to be a grand moment for the New England Patriots. Like it's like they really did something. No, they won their 5th Super Bowl. Like this was not a big deal whatsoever. Maybe I'm just bitter because they beat my Steelers in the AFC Championship game that year, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's how I feel about it. But yeah, I really did not like this movie. I've tried to get back to it and give it another shot, but I can't do it, man. The jokes in this movie are just abysmal. The writing is terrible. The story is not that great. It's a waste of really good, talented people. I hate this movie. I hate 80 for Brady. It's my second worst film of 2023. It would have been my worst if we hadn't gotten to the #1 film. A film that I have severely talked about on a number of numerous occasions on this channel, as well as on the other channel. Let's just go ahead and get to it. My #1 worst movie of 2023 is, not surprisingly, The Flash. So yeah, my #1 worst movie of 2023 is The Flash. Now, I've done videos on this channel and over on the other channel talking about how much I hate this movie. And I do hate this movie. I've pretty much gone off a lot in both of those videos, and even in my middle of the year 2023 list, talking about how much I hate this movie. I hated this movie so much that I literally bought a copy of this movie for no other reason but to destroy it. I bought a copy of it. My plan was I was going to destroy it with something, like some kind of hammer type of thing. Closest thing I came to was a cane that I found at World of Values for $2. And it's actually a real nice looking cane. I'll actually show you that right here. I'll go away from the photo for just a second to show you what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is what I was going to use to destroy this movie. I was literally going to use this for that. But, financial situations, and other things in particular that happened last year really kind of made me decide not to do that. So I'll just try to. So basically, I'm just going to try to sell the movie online, and hopefully, I can get my money back from it. But just let that be. Let's show you why I hate this. How much I hate this movie so much. I was literally going to destroy a 4K copy of it, a Walmart exclusive 4K copy of it, just to prove how much I hated that movie. And I did hate this movie a lot. Like, I'm going to try to keep this as short and simple as I can, because I've talked about this in so many other videos, but this was the one movie in 2023 that I was furious about for a number of different reasons. One, because it wasn't a good movie. Two, it wasted so many opportunities. Like, Michael Keaton is back as Batman in this. That should be the coolest thing ever. And even then, as good as he is in this movie, it's not worth it. The cameos in here, some of them are actually fun. There were times in this movie when I did think, okay, there's something here. There's some good ideas here in general, but what really kills the movie is what was going on behind the scenes. Ezra Miller with all of his legal issues, the fact that he was a monster, and yet the studio was just like, no, you guys are just over-exaggerating a little bit. It's okay. We talked to him. It's fine. There's no problems whatsoever. We're going to get all these issues dropped. It'll be perfect. It'll be perfectly fine. All the post-production setbacks, all the stuff from the COVID pandemic, the directors being changed. They got the director of It to do this one. And, but the thing that really got to me was the fact that Warner Brothers was trying so hard to save this movie. In January, they said, James Gunn had the balls to say, this is one of the greatest superhero movies I've ever seen. It's just like, if this is one of the greatest superhero movies you've ever seen, then Batgirl, the movie that the studio decided not to put out and shelve for good, must be a cinematic masterpiece. I mean, it must be up there with Citizen Kane as one of the greatest movies ever made, because if you think that this movie is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time, you are out of your goddamn mind. And the visuals in this movie are so terrible and so badly put together. But it's okay. The director says it's okay. It's supposed to be bad, which, no, No, I'm not using that as an excuse, and you shouldn't be using that as an excuse either, dude. Especially from you, who did the It movies, who have purposely bad visual effects for a reason in those movies. You do not get to use that excuse here again. Nobody is going to this movie to see bad visual effects. Nobody. And it doesn't help but the thing that really just made me say, this is going to be permanently at the top of the list. This is just something that I think I've said. This is the thing. This is the thing. There's so many different things about this movie that I hate about this movie. This probably isn't it, but it's the second biggest thing that I had against this movie. The cameos. Michael Keaton, yeah. You have Michael Shannon back in here. You have Ron Livingston. You have Gal Gadot in this movie for a little bit as Wonder Woman. But then, in the third act of the movie, they throw in all these different cameos. Like, you have Henry Cavill in this movie. You have Jai Courtney playing Captain Boomerang again. You have Nicolas Cage in this movie as Superman. We finally get to see a live-action Nicolas Cage. We finally get to see what Tim Burton's Superman Lives would have looked like. And it's so bad. It's so badly done. Like, Cage himself even admits he doesn't remember shooting these scenes. That's pathetic. And guess what they used? They used artificial intelligence and deepfake technology. You know, the same thing that shut Hollywood down for half the year. That's in this movie. And oh boy, it gets better and better, because not too long after that, we get a visit from Christopher Reeve as Superman and Helen Slater as Supergirl. And, yeah, they look absolutely horrible. Somebody actually looked at this and said, perfect. We don't need to do anything else. We just need to move on. It'll work just fine. And no, it didn't work fine. They looked horrible. The faces looked so poorly put on there. The visuals look terrible, and it's bad. That's bad enough, but it's worse when the literal next scene that they're in, they're getting destroyed by whatever the thing is, by the time paradox that they have in this movie. Like, basically, it's an insult to those movies, the old Superman movies that started it all. Yeah, Supergirl was not a good movie, but people liked Helen Slater as Supergirl enough. Like, and to do that to them, that's just a fucking insult. It's an insult on so many levels. But really, the thing that made me say that, okay, this has to be the top of the list of the worst movies ever, was because not only were people with the studio trying so hard to save this movie, every time I tried to tell people that this movie was terrible, they told me I was basically, they told me I was full of shit. They basically told me that, oh, why can't you just accept it for what it is? It's a fun movie. It's just like, no, I'm not going to do that, because it's not a fun movie. There's nothing about this movie that is fun. This movie is basically an insult to the DC comics in general. Well, like, this is everything that's wrong with the Snyderverse. This is everything that's wrong with what Warner Brothers was trying to do with these DC movies. They've tried to make these movies in half the time that Disney and Marvel took the time to make their films. And the end result was this abysmal mess where they only had one or two good movies in there every once in a while. But everything else in there was just either a mess, either a major disappointment, and just completely shows you why Disney and Marvel, for the longest time, were so good at doing what they were doing, because they knew to get people that knew what they were doing. Warner Brothers did not have that with DC. That's why I'm so happy that James Gunn is taking over the DC studio. Yes, I criticized him for saying that this was the greatest superhero movie ever made, but the guy knows what he's doing. He worked at Marvel with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He made one of the best movies in the DCEU with the Suicide Squad. His ideas of how to make this universe work with with what they're doing now with the DC Studios thing, starting with Superman, sounds awesome. It sounds like it's going back to what made him. It sounds like it's going back to the old days, and that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing with this new Superman movie. I'm really excited to see where he takes us from here and makes us forget about these horrible abominations that the last couple of DC movies have given, the last almost decade worth of DC movies have given us. This is the worst movie of 2023. This is one of the worst movies ever made. It's bad because it wastes too many good people. It wastes too many good people on this. It showed a studio that was trying so desperately to save it and trying to defend its star, who is a monster. It's a movie that tries to save itself because the visual effects are supposed to be terrible. It's a movie that's trying to save itself because, hey, look, we've got all these people that you grew up loving. They're back in this movie. Just go ahead and celebrate that. Just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because you made a horrible movie and you just won't admit that you made a horrible film. They still haven't admitted that this movie was bad for all the reasons that I just told you. And you know what? They're probably never going to admit it because this is the new Warner Brothers. That Warner Brothers doesn't care about the viewer. They don't care about me. They don't care about all of you out there. If they did, why would they be trying to destroy the legacy of Warner Brothers? Why would David Zaslav be putting all of his effort to destroy anything that made Warner Brothers so special? Because of what's going on with this, what's going on with the Looney Tunes right now, with Coyote vs. Acme. Like, a movie that is praised by a good majority of people that think that this could be the next Barbie type of success, and you're just going to shelve it because you have such a problem with animation in general and the Looney Tunes in general. Like, it's no wonder other studios want Coyote vs. Acme. It's no wonder why Paramount is trying so hard to get it from you, and your retaliation is, well, I'm just going to buy Paramount then. How about that? It's just like, I hope that day comes when David Zaslav finally gets fired, because he has taken the studio that was once a reputable studio and has sunk it down low. Yeah, they had Barbie this year. That was great. But a broken clock is right every once in a while, and that was one of those times. Warner Brothers is a mess right now, and The Flash, I think, was the prime example of everything that's going on with Warner Brothers and DC that's just wrong right now. And I hope that this is the wake-up call that the studio needs to get back to what made them so special, and just go back. Just don't do this anymore. Like, if you're gonna do this if you're gonna do a reboot of the DC studios, get somebody who knows what they're doing. I have a lot of faith in James Gunn. Could be the wrong decision, but right now, I'm going to say that he's still the right choice to do it. But, bottom line, The Flash is a bad movie. It's the worst movie of 2023, bar none. Overhyped, didn't work in the end, wasted too many cameos, used really horrible effects to make it happen. I'm just rambling on right now because, like I said, I've said a lot about this movie, and it's going to be so relieving that I can finally stop talking about this movie because we are now out of 2023. The Flash is, without a doubt, the worst film of 2023. And so, with that said, we are done with 2023, and we look ahead to 2024. Which, considering that we're not even 14 days in, I've already seen 3 movies that are probably going to be in the worst list for 2024. I'm not even joking. I saw 3 really bad movies in the last 14 days. Ones that I think will stick around in the top 10. And even then, they'll be in the honorable mentions. But that will be for next year. But next time we meet on this show, we're going to take a look at the first movies of 2024. We're going to take a look at Mean Girls. We're also going to take a look at The Beekeeper. And let's hope we can start the new year off on a good note with these films. But thank you so much for watching my worst movies of 2023 list. Let me know your thoughts down below. What are your worst movies of the year? If you think I'm wrong, so be it. Tell me I'm wrong. If you think I'm right, so be it. Tell me if I'm right. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope I gave you some good entertainment value to it, and I hope I gave you a good list of movies to avoid like the plague from 2023. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week for another episode. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. Check out the best movies of 2023 video I did last week. And I will see you guys next time. So until then, take care.